Ayub, thanks so much for coming on the Sales and Sports podcast. It really is a pleasure to have you on. You're the second Entr Tech alumni to be on the podcast. For the listeners, we'd love to kick it off and get an introduction to yourself and how you landed in the tech sector, really.
No, thank you for having me. My name is Ayub. I'm from London. I'm 22 years old and I've been working in tech as an SDR for the past 9 or so months. And that's after doing the Entr Tech process.
Super. And I guess we take a step back. Did you know what a sales development representative was or a BDR was before you came on our academy? And do you mind just describing your experience from school to university, where you went to university, what course you studied, and how you, I guess, pivoted in to our academy and then on to the SDR role? So do you mind just giving us a bit of a background to your traditional education?
Yeah, so I went through the traditional education route in that sense, school, sixth form, and then ended up in university. In terms of what I studied at university, I think my childhood dream was always to become a football journalist. So that's something I did end up pursuing. I did a journalism degree at university. I think I enjoyed that, but after the first year or so, started to quickly notice, the role seems glamorous from the outside, but in terms of, there's a very clear ceiling and, gap for what you can achieve. So yeah, it was a great process in that sense. Towards the end, I started to notice that, this was great, but I think I wanted to pursue something different. So at the end of it, I started looking into other routes. I had no idea what an SDR was, so like a sales development representative. It wasn't something I'd heard of at all, sort of thing. I think I'd seen it on a few job boards and stuff, but never really considered it as such. So yeah, it was just by chance that I was looking at. I trained for 4, 5, 6 weeks and then end up in a role, almost guaranteed sort of thing if you do apply yourself properly. So yeah, that was very lucrative for me, and that's what I decided to go after.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that. And I guess from your time on the academy, how was it from a candid point of view, like from the outside looking in? What advice would you give to others to that might be considering the tech industry, and how was your experience? And I guess then how did you land ultimately your first SDR job? Why in particular did you decide this is the right career path for me, like an SDR? I know you're very motivated internally for yourself. I know you're financially motivated, and you had that fire, that hunger, that drive, which you can't really teach, and what we look for in anyone who wants to come on the academy. So tell me about why you decided tech sales was a good fit for you, and ultimately talk me through the interview process at Archivum.
Yeah, so tech sales was basically, although it wasn't like a career that I'd considered too much before the process as such, when I looked into it, you'd had day-by-day activities that you do on a daily basis. The whole idea being, an SDR role, ultimately you're like the first point of like revenue generation for the business. Like you're the person which almost makes money for the business in a sense of, yeah, you find other like customers that would work with the business. And yeah, it's all those activities which are added up, which would, generate clients and income for the business and, grow from there sort of thing. So in that sense, of course, it's motivated financially by, your salary and also commissions as well. I think that's something which is appealing to me. Like I like the idea of, yeah, the better you do, if you're better than someone else in that sense, almost you'd make more money than them. Simple as that, right? So yeah, that's something which is appealing to me in that sense. So yeah, just trying to understand how businesses work like that, trying to understand commission structures, what's incentivized, what's not, and all that sort of stuff was covered in the course for me. And then when I went into the interview process as well, with the company that I work at now, Archivum, I think I understood what the business does as a whole. It was also just trying to like just communicate with them that I was the right fit for them in the sense of, yeah, you want somebody who's hungry, determined. The SDR role is great, but it also comes with you're almost like professionally rejected every single day. So you have to be able to get over that pretty quickly. So yeah, that's something that you have to be able to understand from the outset and communicate to whoever you're working with as your colleagues or the company you want to join. So yeah, that's something that was good to try and understand beforehand.
Awesome. And just to give the listeners a bit of an understanding about the company you're at in terms of a sales development rep, what would your daily routine look like? Would you be in the office 5 days a week? Talk to me about your 9 to 5, really.
Yeah, so I think for me it's a funny one. Although it was a very small company, like the whole company is like 20 people, and therefore means that although it's like a startup in that sense, it's not really a startup at all. Company's been existing for the past like 10, 12 years in that sense. So yeah, it was just a case of now we're trying to like focus on the business side of stuff. Ultimately, I think with SaaS as well, you'll find that the product is the main thing, right? You have to be able to be confident in a product that you're selling and understand the customers that you're working with and things like that. So I understood the product. It was just a case of now trying to understand how the sales process works. So yeah, with a small company, it's great because you're exposed to the whole thing. You're exposed to all the different sides of the business. It was a very like where our office is, a small room where everyone's sitting together. So you have the engineers on one side, on their calls and actually making the product itself. And yeah, I got to work very closely with my CEO on a day-to-day basis, which meant that, yeah, it was great for me to try and understand how the sales process works, use somebody else's experience, and to try and understand how we can try and get sales to the business. So yeah, in terms of a day-to-day basis, getting in the morning. Funnily enough, the company that I worked at was in Reading, which is completely different to where I live. I live in London, so yeah, was lucky in a sense of getting to work on a hybrid basis. Yeah, getting in the morning, trying to break down what are the tasks that I want to try and do today. Because with an SDR, you have to, break up what you want to do to try and get the outcomes in the end. So yeah, day by day basis, trying to see what inbound leads we got, for example, who'd, like got into contact with our website, viewed our pages, trying to contact them, just trying to understand what they were trying to achieve as a business every day. Other activities I got to do every day was like cold emails, which are like, yeah, I think it's something that you have to get used to at the beginning, sending hundreds and hundreds of emails every single day. But it's all automated process, which is great, and also cold calling as well. So yeah, trying to see who'd got into contact with our website, which is a bit more warm, and also just trying to almost disturb someone's day and see if, as a business, they were looking into what we do. So yeah, that was great.
Awesome. And in terms of your targets and KPIs, what did that look like on a day-to-day basis in terms of like volume of outreach and meetings booked? And what was the best method for you in terms of outreach?
Yeah, so I was lucky in the sense that I got inbound leads as well as outbound leads. So whoever came in through our website, and we did a lot of webinars as well. Ultimately, it comes down to what industry you're working in, right? So I was working in a company which mainly, like, the customers were mainly pharmaceutical companies. So yeah, we did a lot of webinars, had a lot of people joining that, trying to, communicate with them. So yeah, my KPIs as such, luckily it wasn't, a very hard amount of, you have to do 100 cold calls today sort of thing. It was more very outcome based. So yeah, just trying to generate like a few meetings a week. I think it was around 2 to 3, like, each couple of weeks as such. But as far as I could really demonstrate that, I was getting into contact with people and having conversations on a day-to-day basis, like actual meaningful conversations to understand where people are at and where we can help them. That was the main metric, really, rather than, just spoil out all sorts of emails and calls without having any like proper focus in that sense. So yeah, that was something which I enjoyed.
Love it. Love it. And what were the challenges? Are there any in the role? Did you see any challenges when you were onboarding, or things you changed differently? Or for people that are looking from the outside in, tech sales can seem really glamorous, right? In terms of the compensation and the benefits of being able to travel or work in a hybrid role, or work with some amazing products and some really intelligent people in some fast-paced industry sectors and industries. Um, so give me some background, some challenges, and maybe some of the less glamorous stuff that you might encounter within an SDR position.
I think there's, yeah, quite a few ones in that sense. I think the first one is rejection, right? Nobody likes to be rejected as such. So yeah, it's just trying to, you know, become like more focused on the outcomes and stuff, like not to become too emotionally connected to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think that's something I almost struggled with at the beginning, because especially at the start, right? Like you'll probably do, almost work harder than you would as you go on, sort of thing, but not get any sort of outcomes in that sense. So yeah, especially with the role I'm at as well, like I was the first SDR as such, me and another colleague, which meant, yeah, we're almost building out the whole process from the start, sort of thing.
Mm,
So yeah, in that sense, it was great to be creative, but it comes with a lot of failure as well.
super. Appreciate that answer. Just having a thought on, I guess, ICPs and people that you're reaching out to. Do you mind sharing who that was, and how you? I know you mentioned phone and email, but what was the best way to get in touch, and what kind of individuals were you reaching out to on a daily basis?
Yeah, so the software that I saw at the moment was an archiving software. So what we do is, almost guarantee to our customers, well, we do guarantee to our customers that whatever information and data that they put into our system would be there in, 20, 30, 40 years time. So yeah, naturally it was a case of trying to map out what sort of customers would be most appealing to that. Naturally, it would have been more like pharmaceutical companies where, yeah, they work, generating a lot of data when you have, new drugs coming out and other prescriptions as such. And you'd also find naturally the people at the top of that like food chain that you want to speak to are very, very senior in their career and naturally senior in their age, sort of thing. So yeah, if you're working with younger people, you can try more wild tactics of, yeah, all sorts of stuff, sending gifts, and I've heard a few ones in that sense, sort of thing. But with me, it was very traditional, just, yeah, trying to give them a call, trying to have a natural conversation with them to see where they're at and what they want to try and achieve, sort of thing. So yeah, just trying to understand who it is that I'm trying to really speak to on a day-to-day basis. And the challenges of that would have been, yeah, as I said, people who are set in their ways will naturally be more inclined to just say no, but educating them on what we do, how it would basically help their business, and why it's actually a need that they need to have. So yeah, that's something that was enjoyable, but also something which you have to try and get used to.
Right. Definitely interesting for people to hear that side of things, because individuals looking to get into the space might not have any idea of the day-to-day work as of an SDR. This is the Sales and Sports podcast, so we'll transition into sports in a second. But what final advice would you have for people looking to break in? Because there might be university graduates who are finishing this summer, individuals that are tech curious that are looking to potentially transition their careers into tech as an SDR or BDR. What advice would you give to someone now you've been there and done it and had that experience from the outside, but also in the inside? What would you give them in terms of advice and words of wisdom to break in and be successful?
100%. I think tech is probably the most lucrative sort of industry at the moment to try and get into. They call it, breaking into tech. We call it Entr Tech as a company. So yeah, it's a case of just trying to understand all the different roles within it. I think the sort of preconception that I had of sales and also tech in general was, sales, I had the very wheeler dealer sort of idea, not like understanding that sales is actually a process. It's a process of like trying to educate someone on, what they may need. It's a process of trying to consult them throughout that, negotiating, speaking to people. There's a lot that comes into it. And tech as well in general, I think you'd have to be, somebody who is technical in a sense, understand coding and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I never really considered tech as a career for myself as such, although it was something I was keen to try and understand. So when I noticed that, you can implement the skill of just, speaking to people on a day-to-day basis, going into meetings, trying to consult with people, suddenly it was very lucrative for me. So yeah, I think that's something I try and communicate to other people as well, to actually look into tech sales and sales in general, purely because it means that you can leverage, the idea of speaking to people on a day-by-day basis. You can also, try and understand how someone's working at the moment, how you can better help them. So yeah, that's something that's definitely appealing.
Love it, love it. And I guess sales as well is a skill for life, right? You can use it in any venture you have, or anything that you're looking to do in future endeavors or different industries. So excited to hear what's next for you. But I guess just before we pivot, I guess sales and sports is the name of the podcast. Tell me about your experiences, either playing or supporting sport. Are you a sports fan? And for you, are there any crossovers between sales and sports?
Yeah, there's a lot really. I think I have a very interesting background in that, I did literally work in sports beforehand. So yeah, as I said, in my childhood dream of, becoming a football journalist was luckily something that I did get to achieve, for the better and for the worse as well.
Yeah,
You noticed that, it wasn't the thing for me, but yeah, just being in professional sports environments, getting to, speak to very top level football managers, understanding that for them it does sound cheesy to a certain extent, but they really do speak about just getting better 1% day by day sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's something that you can bring into sales as such, just understanding that it doesn't really matter what the outcome is to the certain extent, rather than it is better for you to try and perfect your process, because naturally the results will come, right? So yeah, I think in sports you'd see there's a lot of teams who bring in a lot of players. A lot of people are just hungry and determined to succeed, with the idea of, in a few years is when we'll actually see the proper fruits of this. I think in sales, luckily, don't worry, it's not a few years before you see it, rather a few months as such. But just that sort of idea that, yeah, it can be a career for you where you can elevate very quickly by just applying yourself in the best way possible. So, yeah, that's something that I took from my learnings in that industry and brought into here. And it's something that can cross over very well.
got it. So it's like having that growth mindset, but also being patient with results and just believing in the mission and staying dedicated day in day out. Right.
Yeah.
What's your team? I know you're a big football fan. Who do you support? And yeah, give us some background.
Yeah, so I think with me, funnily enough, it was my glory hunting days as a child that led me to become a Man United supporter. So, yeah, for the better and for the worse, almost, I am a Man United supporter in that sense.
Love it. And how do you see next season going? How do you see this season? Obviously, pretty much guaranteed top four now. I think you need a point in the next two games to confirm it. How have you found this season under Ten Hag, and where do you see United going next season? And I guess you've got a busy transfer market ahead, but yeah, how do you see the next 12 months going, and how do you judge the last season?
Yeah, I think it's been a good season, to be fair. After a few years of, basically winning nothing, to actually have a trophy in a bag already and to probably have another one, hopefully, with the FA Cup in the next few weeks and such. So, yeah, I think it's been a good season. Nice to see, there's a few old faces being let go by the club. It looks as if, we're on the up in that sense. So, yeah, I think it's been a good season. It's finally good to have a manager who looks as if they have a plan for the team. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Hopefully, I hope you guys do everyone a favour and beat City in the FA Cup final, because it looks like the treble's basically on for City. They've got one hand on, I'd probably say, the Champions League by now. I mean, I think Inter Milan could do an upset, but realistically, they're on course for the treble like a steam train. So hopefully, you guys can do everyone a favour in the football community. Awesome. And then I guess going forward, transfer window, do you see any big changes there? And I guess next season, what's the success for Man United? Where do you see next season going?
I think I'm almost too optimistic and saying, I want a league title next season. So yeah, I'm not sure about that one yet. But yeah, just trying to get more trophies in really. I think it's nice to see us like qualify for the Champions League again, probably more or less, yes. So yeah, hopefully try and go deep into that tournament. But yeah, I'm just excited to see a few lone players come back, really. Yeah, trying to see how they do in a team. It's just trying to see, the team try and be on the up as such. Yeah, I think it's gone a bit stale over the past few years. So yeah, new faces, new ways of playing football, something that's exciting to try and look forward to.
No, I love it. And there's some good players from the Championship. Diallo looks pretty good from Sunderland. Garnacho's on fire as well when he plays. So you got a good core coming through, and yeah, some of the Deadwood are leaving. I think Phil Jones and some other players. So
Yeah.
no, it's exciting. I think it's such a competitive league as well. Next year, you've got Pochettino coming back to Premier League. I think Tottenham will probably go again. Liverpool go again. So yeah, it's exciting to see. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on. What's next for yourself, and where can people connect with you and find you? Would it be LinkedIn, social media? What's the best way for people to reach out?
Yeah, so I think I've just, very recently left my role to try and pursue my own sort of thing. I think that's not a slight on where I used to work at all. I think you quickly notice that you can apply the skills that you've learned from both, learning process and day by day sort of thing. So yeah, for me, it's to try and get into a role where I can work on my own sort of basis and work with a whole range of other companies. So yeah, exciting times for me, hopefully. In terms of how you can, connect with me, LinkedIn, just my name, Ayub Ali. More than happy to, if there's somebody who wants to try and get into the Entr Tech process or just speak about tech sales in general, more than happy to do that. So yeah, feel free to connect with me and LinkedIn in that sense. More than happy to do what I can do to help.
Thanks so much, man, and yeah, best of luck with your venture. Obviously, we'll chat a bit more after this offline, but super excited for you. I think having an experience as an SDR and learning the fundamental skills of sales will allow you to be a success wherever you go as an entrepreneur. So huge congrats in taking the leap again, and yeah, we'll circle back offline.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
Thanks, Abe. Speak soon.